of this person? What's wrong with them? Like what's bad about them?
Yeah.
I mean, would you say that that's how far it goes? Like
it can,
yeah.
depending on the vibes from that person.
Yeah.
There's people I haven't felt that way with.
Like we believe there's bad intent.
Yeah.
The intent is to cause harm.
Yeah. Because ultimately it will affect our ability to work to a solution if we can't just talk about the problem. You can't get to the solution. And then ultimately it completely affects performance of that person's job, their manager's job, and the business as a whole.
So I say all of this very clear on like what you and I think and what we feel and who we are and how we communicate. But I also have learned over years and over life to empathize and do my best to intentionally put myself in other people's views. And I will say I've very much learned and come to understand, to the best of my ability, indirect communicators. And that it's, in many cases, for some people, absolutely painful. It's beyond a discomfort. Yeah, it's beyond painful. It is become some conflict, any degree of confrontation, anything like that is become so painful that anything to avoid that situation is justified for them.
Yes. So I think part of what has helped us to see the positives in it is we both have had people in our life that we are protective of, that are that way. And it makes us stop and be a little more sensitive and a little more understanding and empathetic to how their brain works. I mean, really, it is how people's brain works. It's frustrating for me. It's probably frustrating for them. Ask Archie; he'll tell you. It drives him crazy the way I communicate because I call him passive aggressive and he calls me aggressive aggressive. That's what we joke and say. But obviously, we make it work because we very much care about each other. In family and friends, like I said, I become more aggressive. I wrote notes. Oh, and come up a little second. I'm done. Yeah. I pretty much said everything that I was going to say about why it's hard.
So without being specific about names, and you just brought up, I thought, a really good point, which is how part of our learning and coming to understand better and be more empathetic to indirect communicators has been having people in our life who we are so close and protective over. Yeah. And, there's one person in particular that I would say you feel the most about this, and maybe the most extreme example of somebody in terms of conflict is painful.
Yeah.
Criticism of like the idea, the thought of somebody that this person cares about thinking anything negative of them is like, feels unbearable.
I think that God puts people in your life for a reason. And this person was definitely put into my life to help me empathize.
What would you say are like some ways you've now learned to navigate? Because I don't even think it's an option for you to come at this person hard. Like they will shut down entirely and they will cocoon, you know what I mean? Like further cocoon. And that like it's going to make them feel really bad and you don't want to cause any pain for them.
And so that naturally brings me down. And naturally
is that something you've learned to do?
Not wanting to cause pain makes me absolutely know when to back down. Know when to just chill out and let them process and let them come to their own, let them just process and figure out how they want to communicate it.
Is it difficult to find a balance though? Because I also think that sometimes if we're talking about somebody's safety, if we're talking about their health, now that confrontation or that criticism is necessary.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? How do you navigate a situation where it's like, I know this is going to be a hard one. It's going to be hard because they're not going to take it well.
And then you adjust your communication style and you say,
no, I'm not saying you, but you. Like
me. I adjust my communication style and I make it clear. Here's what I see happening. I'm going to wait for you to process and communicate back to me. and then you ask that person to circle back with you. Because really, they want to run forever. They don't want to come back to it. They don't want to talk about it. That person that's inching towards the door, they're not trying to come back in the door.
That's a therapist communication tool. Like I remember, in therapy myself, hearing about this and saying, when you're trying to meet someone somewhere with the goal is to become closer, right? To bring that relationship and put it into a stronger place, and communication is essential in order for that to happen. And so meeting someone where they are, which is to say, I know that you need time to process. I need, me continuing to be persistent and aggressive is not going to help this conversation at this point. I'm going to leave it with you to come back to me and talk to me. Now, the time point, which, has been really important, something that my husband and I learned in couples therapy is the more, because my husband and I have very different communication styles. He's definitely more of like a processor. He needs to process information before we can have an actual engaged conversation. Is I need to hear him. I will back off and I will give him the space he needs, but I need to hear him say, not only will he circle back with me, but a time frame.
Yeah. That's important.
Because
that's truly meeting.
It's hard for you too, right? Because people who have these like direct communicator personalities, when there's an issue or a problem with somebody we love and we care about, it eats away at us until we feel it's been addressed and hopefully
like going
resolved.
To bed mad, so like it's like torture.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. So for me, communicating the way that her mother did communicate, it just, to me, it's like that takes so much more energy. Like you just say what you need, but to her it was just, it didn't take so much more energy. It would have taken more of her energy to be direct. She would have.
Various people have told me in my life is people who are indirect communicators have a perception about direct communicators that we do it because it's easy.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't cause us the same level of discomfort or pain that they experience.
Like how many times have we gone into a conversation with an upset stomach, losing a night of sleep the night before?
Right.
It's hard.
It is. And this is a message I really want to get out there for folks who have this perception. If you're an indirect communicator and you find conflict and confrontation painful, I will tell you, and then you see somebody else who's a direct communicator who appears to be comfortable in navigating conflict, I will tell you that it is also hard for the direct communicator. And like Kristen just said, a perfect example, like I have absolutely felt like sick to my stomach, anticipating a conversation that I know is going to be hard and worrying about how it's going to affect the other person and loving someone and caring about people and not wanting to hurt them, but also knowing that like, depending on the situation, if we're talking about health or safety, and quite frankly in work, productivity, right? Mm-hmm. That it's unfortunately necessary. And yes, I would go as far as saying a necessary evil, because that experience and those emotions are still very much there for a direct communicator. It's just that what's the priority, right? So the priority isn't for me in direct communication, because I can't speak for other people, but for me, the priority in direct communication is the value of that relationship and the quality of that relationship, and the resolving of the issue is a bigger priority than the pain or discomfort or how hard something is.
Yeah.
That is way further down the line.
And I will say, God putting people in my life who I do care about and I'm protective of, that don't have the same communication style as me, they've taught me, because of my care and protectiveness over them, they've taught me how to come down. And in the same time, I've watched them come up a little bit. And I use that expression like, aggressive versus like passive, two opposite ends of the spectrum. Maybe we're like here, but we really are able to get here. They work harder at communicating directly because they love and respect me.
And there's some like hard stuff in the midst of that too, like going, shouldn't have done it that way. Like I'm learning from it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe me, when I was evolving as a communicator, yeah, I screwed up so much, so much. Like, you're going to mess up and you're going to fall on your face and you're going to say things the wrong way and you're going to, you know, use the wrong words. And the people that love you are going to forgive you and you're going to get through it.
The other interesting part is you mentioned earlier that the more indirect somebody is, the more passive that they might be, the more you're direct and aggressive.
Yeah.
But I've also seen the role reversal happen, because you and I can have an interaction and a dynamic between us where I'm more direct.
Yeah.
And you're being indirect, and you'll be passive in a conversation. Not so much passive, I would say defensive in a conversation. And you start to take on those characteristics in a communication
100%.
that you can't stand.
And I thought this earlier in this conversation, for my opinion, the dynamic between the two of us is the challenge is I process slower than you do. So like in a conversation, you're processing and able to act on those
as soon as
like immediately. And I'm like, I've found myself in situations with her where I've been like, I just need a minute. Like, I don't have the answer right now. I don't have it right now, but I need a minute, you know? And that's hard.
And you're a very emotionally charged person.
What? No, I'm not.
And I definitely err on the side of like logic.
It's annoying.
And
she always makes sense. It's really annoying.
We'll have to like do a weighing scale of annoyance on each side, okay? But
I'm funnier.
So yes, she is at the most inappropriate times. But the original call out here is when you are interacting with other people who are indirect, you're like, they're here, they're pulling away, and she's like, she's like, I'm coming after you. But when it's you and I tend to take on more of that direct communicator, and I'm like, why? Explain it.
She's been
I need to
asking me
understand.
why since 1989. I don't know why.
And I'm like, help me understand. And then when you add, so you then take on this more indirect defensive communication.
Yeah.
You start to do the things that you absolutely hate other people doing to you.
I'm just answering her questions that she won't stop asking.
And on top of everything else, the closer you are with somebody and the more you care about them, the more emotionally charged you are.
Yeah, for sure.
And once the emotions take over, then it's like Kristen's filter, how very tiny it exists in the first place, has like been planted out in the same garden that my mom was planting all the seeds in. It just got lost somewhere over there. And it's just like a full communication breakdown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that's the other thing to call out, is to say, like, we came into this, this video to talk about, you kind of citing all the positive sides of direct communication and the negative things about indirect communication. And my role in this was supposed to be to talk about, all the positive things associated with being a life gardener and being somebody who can like plant the seeds of communication to get outcomes that you're looking for. But the reality is that I think there's a big impact about who in that communication, there tends to still be someone who, no matter what, is going to be more direct.
Yeah.
And then the reaction could be the other person being less direct. And, and how do you navigate through all of that pain and discomfort and awkwardness and,
because by the way, in the real world, adults, like, you have to deal with shit. Mm-hmm. There's stuff that you just have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with people at work. You're going to have to deal with, God.
I don't know. I feel like I've run across a good number of folks lately who think it's possible to just avoid and evade.
And then you get taken advantage of.
Avoid and evade for as long as possible. Like, there are a lot of people in my life that I know of that think, just give it time. Like, that's the solution to everything. There's a problem, no matter how big or small the problem is, don't talk about it.
Your dad has literally said that to me before. I was really upset about something that was a problem, and he was like, it's going to go away. His literal words were, it's going to go away. And I was like,
which is so strange because that is something that has
maybe in
changed
his
in
elder
him
years
as he's gotten older. And I'm like, has this been something that's changed?
He was very
in
direct
him
when he was younger. I think a lot of people get
because of life experience, or just because he's just like, I'm tired.
Yes, I think a lot of people soften up.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure,
as they get older, for sure. And
unless it's a certain topic.
But like simple things, like if my daughter is watching this, I don't think she's gonna be watching at this point in the video because her attention span will already taken her over to TikTok or something. But for example, we were talking about this week. She went to a coffee shop and she got a drink and she tasted it and it was like horrible. And she spoke up and I was like, I'm so proud of you. And she got the drink replaced. I was like, I'm so proud of you because she would typically when she was younger, just take the drink and leave. And I'm like, that's literally a $5 drink. Tell them that it's bad and get a new drink.
$5? Where'd you go? Dunkin' Donuts?
They went to a coffee shop in Bethany. I wasn't there. But when she told me that this happened, I was like, I'm so proud of you for saying something. You have to advocate for yourself. She was recently charged a fee at the gym that she wasn't supposed to be charged. And we talked through that and how you have to don't let people take your money. You don't have to be aggressive about it. And I think in their head, they're like,
yes,
dealing with it is going to make me aggressive like that person. And I don't want to be like that. You don't have to be like that to advocate for yourself.
So, but there are circumstances you do. And I think a perfect example of this
tries to push you around
is, I'm saying, let's talk from work in a professional perspective. So, Chris and I, as over a decade now of, running this business and operating our businesses together, pretty much like the last administrative support role that we hired was for ourselves. And I will tell you that this is a role that any executive assistant, administrative assistant, office manager, any environment where you're in a role where you're supporting a business leader, a business owner, whatever it might be, this is a role that absolutely demands an assertive personality.
Yeah.
And I kind of,
because they truly are advocating for us in different situations. That's their job.
But it's really interesting to me because I know a lot of people who do not have assertive personalities in their personal life, but then when it came to like work, it was like, yeah, they could, because I think about so many circumstances, and it really stinks because I've trained numerous times people in roles such as this throughout my entire 25-year career thus far. And in these roles that I was training them on, I would say to them, I hate to say this, but you have to go into conversations very clear that you're the customer and that they're the service provider or the product provider. And as the customer, you have a right to have expectations of receiving what you paid for.
Yeah.
And that the other person on the other side of that line will hopefully be a good customer advocate, and hopefully they will work hard at doing their job, and they will work to accomplish providing what you paid for to them.
Most of the
time, and maybe once in a blue moon, they'll seek excellence, right? They'll really seek that next level. You have so many companies that, of course, tout customer service excellence and all this kind of stuff. But it is, if I had to give you a percentage, it's like 10% of the time, and that my experience has been. So you go into these conversations, if you're in any administrative, capacity or function, when you call, you have to go in with the assumption that you have to remind them that you're on the phone, in a meeting, face to face with someone, and basically reminding them, and you don't have to be bitchy about this, right? You can be kind and still issue the reminder.
It truly is a reminder. They might have they're just not thinking about it.
But you have to stick with the expectation that it is absolutely, the right view to have is, if you're a customer, to expect to get what you paid for.
Yeah.
But when you have a more indirect, passive personality, that is a very difficult reminder to issue.
Yeah.
That is a very difficult reminder to stand on. And I've seen indirect people in conversations when they're the customer, or they're supposed to be a representative of the customer for the person they're supporting, and be like, all of a sudden they're the ones trying to problem solve. They're apologizing. They're, you know,
doing the job.
Every statement they make ends with the tone of a question mark.
I used to
at
do
the
that.
end of it. Yeah, and I remember I would call you out.
Yeah.
Like, you have to stop raising your voice, you know, or going high pitch at the end of every sentence because you sound like every sentence is a question.
Yeah.
When it's supposed to be a statement. But it's just, and I could clearly see with the people who were, their personalities were again very indirect, and they found conflict of any kind painful, that it was like, what you are asking me to do, I can't do it. I've seen some people overcome it, but most haven't. And I don't know if they will ever. I don't know. And so you kind of get to this point where you go, is this a battle worth fighting? Like, is this, and there's Mel Robbins is a therapist who has a podcast and all this kind of stuff. And I've been kind of following her lately. And one of her books that she just released is, you know, about the concept of like, let them. People are going to be who they are. They are only going to change if they want to change. You cannot invest energy in trying to control somebody else, you know, and trying to force someone to be something or do something that is not them or they don't want to do. And you just have to let them. And then once you come to terms with that, you've got to be able to look in the mirror and focus on self-control, self-improvement, you know, reflection, and becoming, you know, working towards becoming the best and healthiest version of yourself. And because I think a lot of people use trying to control other people and trying to change other people as a distraction
from the fact
from self-reflection.
Yeah.
And self-control. And I mean, I will tell you, people who are the most controlling have I'm telling you 100% across the board. Every human being I've interacted with who are desperate to control other people or like need to be in control of other people have the worst self-control.
Yeah.
They deal with addiction. They deal with, you know, various other issues and problems. They struggle in terms of relationships that they have in their life, like across the board, because, and zero accountability, you know, for things that they do. They constantly act like they're a victim of their own emotions. They're a victim of their own behaviors. Everyone else is to blame. And, you know, so it's kind of interesting that, and I'm like, what? Stop trying to control other people and focus on
literally there are people on the road that do this. Like they try to control traffic. There's people who drive slow because they're scared or they're old or whatever the reason is that they drive slow that makes sense. There's people out there who drive slow intentionally to control traffic. Yeah. And this happened also recently.
I've literally talked to someone that told me they will drive in the left-hand lane and they'll drive like 5 to 7 miles over the speed limit. And they will stay there and they will have like a whole line of traffic behind them, like on their butts. And,
because they're controlling and
they
no one goes
you
over.
Shouldn't be speeding.
Yeah. We had this happen recently and I said to Alex, because she was driving and somebody was doing this, and I said, just know that person has they're completely out of control in their brain. And in their house and in their life, like they're just controlling what they can. They're grabbing for straws. So just pray for them. Yeah. Which is really, it's hard to do sometimes. We always like to take these videos and kind of throw out there our perspectives, our experiences, and really give you guys something to chew on and to think about yourselves. And I would ask, and I don't usually do this at the end of videos, but I would ask that anyone who's on the more indirect communication style or conflict averse, I mean, you know who you are. Like, you know if this is you or not, because for sure a lot of times when they are this way, they will tell you, you know, or show you. But just try to think of direct communicators with as much care and empathy as we think of indirect communicators. Yes, it's frustrating, and I've pointed out all the negatives about it because it's frustrating for me, but I still empathize and I still recognize that they are who they are and this is their style. And maybe this, you know, you kind of come up with excuses for them. Just think about that too. Like Angela said earlier, don't assume that it's easy for us. Don't assume that we like conflict. No, I don't like conflict.
I would actually, that's a good point. I didn't actually go as far as saying that indirect communicators think that direct communicators like conflict, but I've heard that too.
They think we
before.
just like, you just want to argue.
Like,
no, I don't.
Oh, they love, and what's interesting is I actually have people in my life who are absolutely conflict averse, are absolutely indirect communicators, but boy, oh boy, do they love to instigate, and be devil's advocate. You know,
Yes.
I don't know if I go as far as like to say they're gaslighting, but like I would say they absolutely, they will be in a debate and they enjoy the debate, right? And they'll have a topic and they will just intentionally take the opposite view, even if it's not actually what they agree with, because they just enjoy the debate. And I'm like, how strange is that? How can you be somebody who's so afraid of like a real conflict about like real situations and real life and like real emotions and avoid it like the plague, but then be such an instigator and like be such a person who's like
poking the bear under the table.
Well, and not even just poking the bear, but like loves the interaction of a debate.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We're the same brain. But yeah, just be kind to other people that are different than you. Don't make any assumptions. And if you do, assume the best. Like, just assume the best. It's easy, really easy. And this is a whole nother live if we haven't already done a live on this, which apparently I forget a lot these days. Perimenopause, next live.
I'm Angela.
What was I saying?
Brain fog. There it goes.
Oh my
God. You were saying something about like, you know, empathizing, understanding where people are coming from.
A whole other live would be.
Who
the hell knows? But we'll let you know.
Is there?
No.
Oh. Wow. That was fast. Usually like
because I got distracted.
That was seconds. That wasn't even
oh my God.
It's about being kind or empathizing or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are, guys. We're gonna.
Have you guys seen my period lately? Because I haven't. Where is it? Where'd it go? And I'm only 46.
This is the run-on sentence from hell.
This is the making the jokes at the inappropriate times. I think it's time to wrap it up. I don't have my glasses on. If anybody notices, I've been looking at her a lot more than I've been looking at there, because when I look there, all I see is like a kid draws a face and like colors it in, you know, peach, and there's no eyes or nose or mouth yet. That's what I'm seeing because I don't have my glasses on. So, but I can see close up. That's why I'm like this the whole time.
So here we are. We will bring this to a close now. Thank you to everybody who's taken out time to stick with us, and hopefully we've made some degree of sense through this whole thing. I like you said, you know, the takeaway. You already said the key takeaway is to just, you know, again, put out an olive branch of understanding.
Oh, I know what it was.
Assuming
the negative, the distance breeds negativity thing. Have we done a live on that?
And proximity breeds
understanding.
Yeah.
Have we done that? I feel like we have.
I think we have, because we've talked.
The less you're communicating with people, the more you
avoidance
tend to
of problems, like the hard conversations. We literally probably just covered this on the most recent video that she didn't know that she was a part of.
I thought that was the live today. And she's like, no, we already did that.
Guys, I'm gonna go get Kristen her medication.
Anyway, the further apart you are from people and the less you're communicating, the easier it is to assume the negative. Don't do that. Like, make the extra effort to assume the positive, and remember that most people are good people and we have more in common than we don't have in common.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and do all the things if you haven't done it already. On my YouTube channel, Mama Goal of 4. Please go over there. Maybe someday I can break 100 followers.
If you're watching this, can you please just like her damn page? Follow it, please.
What do I have to do?
She makes me do these every week.
No.
Every other.
It's been like a month now at this point. All right. Bye, everybody.